Welcome to Bump Set Chat, the podcast where volleyball professionals come on and share their stories, experiences, and advice. And from Tennessee, I have Eve Rackham Watt. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so glad you're able to join us. So the way we start things off is with three random questions. So are you ready?
Ready.
All right, so you're driving in the car. On the radio comes on a song. What song brings out your inner singer?
Oh gosh, I think if you asked my husband, he would probably say anything One Direction.
Okay, excellent. All right, second question. Most interesting place you've played a match in?
Well, oh gosh, that's a hard one. We've played all over, but we just got back from Italy and Poland. And I think for us being able to play in Poland, I don't know if I ever would have gotten that experience before. So I would say there.
Excellent. And last question. Best thing about where you live?
Oh gosh, that's there's so many answers for that. I love Knoxville for so many reasons. I think what I always tell people, what I love the most about it is it's like this, it's a college town within a small city. And so I think, you get kind of this whole feel of college town. You get big time athletics, you get a community that just loves this university, but you get it in a kind of smaller city setting where there are a lot of things to do. So I love that you get the best of both worlds here.
Excellent. All right. Well, you got through the three questions, so off we go. So first of all, congratulations on being, co-SEC Coach of the Year. That's fantastic.
Thank you.
And how would you sum up last season?
It was really good. I think to me, I think about last season as kind of a culmination of what we've done over the last 5, 6 years and just building towards that. When we took this job as a staff in 2018, we certainly had big goals and big dreams for this program. And I felt like last season was kind of, we finally got there. It was a roster full of players that had only been recruited by us. We had some of the older players who had been through the program with us and kind of had developed. And then obviously we're able to bring in some transfers as well. But I just think it was a product of what so many classes before had done and kind of the work that people had put in. So it was really nice to be able to have the success that we had and send those seniors out on a great season. But still lots of work to do. It was great, but it was certainly last season. So on to the next.
Yep, absolutely. So let's go back to the beginning. Where are you originally from?
Originally, I'm from Northern California, a small town called Sebastopol. It's about an hour north of San Francisco, close to what most people would know, Sonoma and Napa.
Okay. And when did you first discover volleyball?
So I was in fifth grade and I made the fifth and sixth grade. They combined kind of a middle school fifth and sixth grade team. I made it. I have no idea why, probably because I was tall. I used to be tall. Now I'm not that tall, but relative to the players now. But I think I was tall and decent athlete. So I made that team. I fell in love with the sport then. My stepfather was a teacher at the time. And so he asked around the school, hey, are there any other volleyball opportunities for girls outside of just school? And that's when I learned about club volleyball. So I started playing club volleyball when I was 10 or 11 years old, and then just kind of, started from there. So, yeah. But I was young when I got introduced to it and fell in love with it right away.
And then, from then to now, what's the hook volleyball has on you that's made it a profession for you?
Yeah, I think, as a young player, I love to compete. I love to win. And so we did a lot of that in my, high school and my club experience and then going on to college. I think it was a lot about that. And truthfully, when I got into coaching, I think that was really still what was driving me, was just the competitiveness and wanting to be a part of the sport that I love, but also just to be able to continue to compete as a coach. And then the longer I've been in coaching, I would say it's definitely still the competitive piece, but I do feel like as I've been in coaching longer, I didn't know that I would enjoy the relationships as much as I have. I started college coaching when I was 22 years old, so I've been.
Oh, wow.
I was very young, so this fall will be 21 years, I think, of college coaching for me. And so when I was young, it wasn't so much about the relationships. I wasn't thinking about that, but probably the last 10 years of my career, I really feel like I've enjoyed just watching the progression of athletes come in as 17, 18-year-olds and graduate at 22 years old, much more confident in who they are, much more sure of who they are, and being a part of that process. I think that those relationships I've really enjoyed. I think that's keeping me in it just as much as the competitiveness.
Great. And then, after high school, you landed at North Carolina.
Yes, I did.
And what was that process like? Were you looking at other schools as well? And what made you finally pick UNC?
Yeah, it's kind of a funny story. I was a what I would call like a tweener in positions. I think I knew I was always going to be a college setter, but growing up I kind of did everything on the court. And so I don't think a lot of people were knew that I could set. And so my club coaches did a really good job of like letting people know like she's going to be a college setter, but yes, she passes and she hits and she does everything. So, and I didn't actually set all that much. I really passed and hit more than I did anything. And so I really wanted to stay on the West Coast. I was a California kid. It was a Pac-10 at that time, and I really wanted to stay on the West Coast. And so my final three choices came down to University of Hawaii, University of Arizona, and North Carolina. And my stepfather, the same person who kind of got me into volleyball, was really pushing the academic side of things for me. Just, hey, like the North Carolina degree, you can't beat it's a great degree,
Yeah.
And I was kind of like, I just want to play volleyball, I want to stay on the West Coast. And so I ended up calling the University of Arizona, and this is again before cell phones, so there was no texting or anything.
Yeah.
I called the University of Arizona because my mom and I got into a big fight because she thought I was just dragging it on and wouldn't make a decision. And so I said, fine, I'm going to go to Arizona. So I called University of Arizona, and they didn't answer the phone. And so I left a voicemail, a voicemail. I think that's what it's called, right? An answering machine.
Yeah.
And I just said, hey, like if you can give me a call back. And I called right after that, I called the coach at North Carolina and I said, I just want to thank you for everything, but I'm going to go to Arizona. And he said, well, did you commit yet? And I said, well, no, because they didn't answer the phone, but that's where I'm going to go. And we spent about an hour and a half on the phone after that. And honestly, he really just talked me out of it. There were a number of reasons why, but I think he really just talked me out of it. And so I ended up getting off the phone call with him and, talking with my parents and just kind of doing a little bit more thinking, and ultimately decided to go to North Carolina. And it was great. I went there and I started as a freshman, and it was, I got away from home, and I think that was one of the best things I ever did.
Wow. And now, did you want to be a setter or did you want to be a hitter? Now, because I asked that because I had Micah Christensen on, and he had to get his arm twisted to be a setter because he said when somebody walks into the gym, nobody sees somebody setting. They hear somebody hitting the ball. So he had to get his arm twisted to be a setter.
Yeah, no, I didn't mind. I liked the setting position. Honestly, my passion was in passing, and this is pre-libero.
Mm-hmm.
I think if I could have played libero in college, that would have been all in. That's like it was always my favorite skill. I always felt like it was the most natural, and I think if I had to choose, that would probably be my first choice. But obviously, as a setter, you get to run the offense, you get to touch the ball all the time. You're kind of in charge. So it fit my personality, I would say, for sure. And I did, but I had to learn. I had to learn to love it because it just wasn't something that I did all the time.
All right. And then, going back to North Carolina, looking back on that experience, what were some of the highlights that really, stick out for you?
Well, we won a lot, so that was fun. We were ACC champions either regular season or conference champions every year that I was there. So that was back when they had the ACC tournament. But God, I feel old. Everything I say is like back when but yeah, so we won a lot. And our class, there was four of us in our class, and we came in together, we graduated together. We're still friends to this day together, and so I felt it's special in that way to me that I got to come in with the same class and we had so much success. We were all different positions, so we were on the floor together quite a bit, and it just I think for me, when I look back, I don't think I knew it at the time, but the transition I made as just a young person from growing up in Northern California to moving to the South, and the changes that I, saw and went through, and just, it was so good for me as a developing young person. And then, the connections that I made going to school there, it's a place that a lot of people, love. And so that even graduating from there, being able to stay connected to many people and who helped me kind of start my career. But yeah, I mean, I think really what happened to me was just those first couple of months, I think about, gosh, I was so homesick.
Yeah.
I was like, I can't believe I live in North Carolina. Like that people, they talk different, they eat different, I just was like, wow, and I didn't realize how good that was for me at that time, but I'm so thankful for that.
Oh, good. Yeah, because it is so hard. You think back on that process as, somebody who's in grade 10 or 11 committing to, other side of the country, and now you're doing it. Your parents are over there, and it's a big step. And also you go like with, being college volleyball, women's volleyball, a fall sport, you don't have much of a window to get acclimated to the whole environment before, things hit, you go to 100.
Yeah, I mean, and again, back then we committed as seniors. So I was an early commit in October of my senior year, and so then you're moving 8 months later, 9 months later. And it's funny because my college coach, I think he was so afraid that I wasn't going to stay because he knew it was like this is a big move for her, that he told my parents, don't come with her. Like when she moves, just let her go.
Oh,
And I,
wow.
I actually now as a parent, I can't imagine
I know, right?
somebody saying that to me and me doing it. But my mom said okay. And so they, took me to the San Francisco airport. I had two suitcases and I flew to North Carolina by myself. And, I showed up in August because that was again before you used to come for summer school and all those things. And so it was hot. I just remember it being, oh my God, it's hot, it's humid, and yeah, so I had two suitcases and it was like I just had to figure it out.
Because you had
And
no cell phone, you had no, no social media to stay contact.
yeah,
Wow.
no FaceTime, no text, and a funny story I always tell is like I tell my kids that get homesick now, I'm like, we used to have to stay with the upperclassmen in their off-campus apartments or houses or whatever. And so you're sleeping on a couch. And again, everybody had answering machines. And so my mom had called during preseason and none of us were home. And so she left a message on the answering machine, bawling, crying,
Oh, no.
about how much she misses me. And then it's like we all get back from practice. And so the girl that, the senior on the house is like
Yeah.
playing this voicemail from my mother, and I'm crying. And it's like everyone's like, just,
Oh,
okay,
my
is
God.
this girl gonna make it? But yeah, I mean, to your point, just no way to connect. It was like people had pagers and
Yeah.
and house phones. And so moving across the country, I mean, again, my mom grew up in San Diego. So for her, North Carolina might as well have been Europe. It was so
Right.
far, but it was a big change and but all for the good, I would say.
Yeah. Now, did you have siblings or were you an only child?
I had an older brother and
Okay.
a younger sister. So I was kind of right in the middle, but I
Yeah.
was the first one for sure to go away. Yeah.
Wow. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And then after North Carolina, what made you, jump into coaching?
Well, it's funny because as far as I can remember, I always wanted to coach. I don't know why. I just remember vividly being 10, 11 years old and saying, like, I either want to teach or I want to coach. And so I got out of college and it was kind of, I was at a crossroads. Am I going to keep playing and try to do the professional thing, which again, back then was not as common as it is now, or was I going to get right into coaching? And so I kind of I tried the professional thing. I went overseas. I did some tryouts. I came back and in the meantime started kind of applying for coaching jobs. And almost simultaneously, I got a head coach or a assistant coaching opportunity or offer to start at Colgate University. And I was like, okay, I think I'm going to do that because I don't know what's going to happen with the pro thing. And then about a week later, I got an offer to go to a team and play in Germany. And I felt like, gosh, I've already committed to doing the coaching thing, and I know this is what I want to do. So I'm just going to start. And so I was 22. I had moved back to California after North Carolina for about 6 months. And so now I'm moving to upstate New York. And again, upstate New York is not New York City. So in my 22-year-old brain, I'm like, great, I'm moving to New York. This is going to be awesome. Quickly did I learn that it's not the same and it's not close.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I started coaching at 22. I think for me, starting at a smaller school was great. It was kind of started my coaching journey. I was, but I just knew I wanted to coach. I don't know. I couldn't really tell you why. It just
Yeah.
was something in me when I was really young. I kind of always felt that way. And then when I graduated, obviously having played, I had, I think, a decent resume as a player.
Yeah.
So I had an opportunity right away.
Excellent. And then what was your path to Tennessee?
So I was at Colgate for a year, and actually not even a full year. I was there for like 7 months, and I think it snowed like 6 of them, so I was like, okay, this is not for me. I don't know if I can stay here. So I left Colgate. I went to East Carolina University. I was there for 3 years, loved it, learned a lot about coaching there. The guy I worked for was so good with me. I learned a lot about the just how to coach. It's not the same
Nope.
as and then I was like 25, 26, and I was in a college town, and I was like, okay, I'm ready to like not be in a college town. And so I left there. I went to Florida International in Miami, and honestly, I was very, very happy. I loved living in Miami. I loved where I was coaching. Again, I was learning a ton. I was the only assistant coach. That was kind of a theme for me.
Yeah.
Colgate, East Carolina, FIU. I was the only assistant coach. So I had a lot of responsibility. And, because now you've got 3 assistant coaches, you got a director of ops, you've got managers. We
Right.
didn't have any of those things. So it's like you're wearing a ton of hats, you're learning a bunch. And I think I would have stayed there a long time. But when I got the phone call from my old head coach to come back to North Carolina and coach in 2009, I just felt like, okay, I got to go back and go there. And so I took that assistant coaching job in 2009. And then I was there for almost 10 years as an assistant and associate head coach. And then I think, things just they get to a point where they kind of run its course. And
Hmm.
I always knew I wanted to head coach. For me, it was really about where. I wasn't willing to just go anywhere. Obviously, through my time at North Carolina, I had opportunities to be a head coach, but I wasn't going to settle, and it had to be the right place. It had to be the right time. And so it was in 2018, it was the right time for me. I think I was ready to move on from North Carolina. And that it was the best opportunity. I mean, it was just like, as soon as the job came open, I told my head coach, I said, that's a great job. It was like, I knew it like immediately. And so was really thankful when they called. But yeah, that's kind of the journey. That's how I
Okay.
got here. And I took the job in 2018.
And now, what was it about Tennessee that, was there one particular thing that really drew you to it, or was it just the overall, it had everything that you wanted?
It had what I knew. I had never been to Knoxville, but what I knew about Tennessee, and I don't really know how I know this or knew this, but I was like, what I know is that women's sports matter there. And it's a big deal to be a female athlete there. And I guess it was because of how much you saw the Lady Vols basketball team on TV and how big of a figure Pat Summitt was for female sports. But it was just like, I knew they cared about female sports. And that for me as a female head coach, coaching a female sport was really important, that I went somewhere where I felt like they were going to support me and they were going to support my athletes. Again, I also wasn't willing to just live. I grew up on the West Coast. I'm not a cold weather person. I'm not a Midwest person. It was like, there's only so many places I'll live,
Yeah.
but there's just not a lot of places in the country. I could probably count them on one hand that take care of their, female coaches and female athletes the way we do here. And so for me, that was the biggest, like, selling point. It was just like, I wanted to be here for that.
Oh, excellent. And now, do you remember your first game as head coach?
Yes, I do. I mean, we played Michigan State, and this is funny because the schedule was done pretty much before I got here. It had been done already. So I was like, okay, so we're opening up against Michigan State. Great. Okay. I was, gosh, I think 6 months pregnant, and there was a lot of people in the stands, and I was not prepared for them to play Rocky Top before the game started. So I remember those things. I
Yeah.
remember coming out, there was a lot of fans. Rocky Top was really loud, and I was pregnant, and we were playing a really good team. Those are the things that I remember. And then us winning. That was yeah. So yeah, I have a lot of memories from that, but they're kind of random.
Yeah. Oh, excellent. And now, over the years, since you've started coaching, any significant changes that really stick out?
Oh gosh, I mean the job has changed tremendously since 20 years ago. It just the college sports have changed the way, I mean, and they continue to evolve. I've learned so much. I've probably forgotten a lot as well. But I mean, our rules have changed. The way people recruit has changed. Our recruiting rules have changed. The support of our sport has changed. It's like, I don't think there isn't anything that has
Yeah.
changed over the last, 20 years. And even in the last 5 years, there's just been so much growth in this sport. Again, growing up on the West Coast, it was like, it used to be the only people who really played volleyball were on the West Coast. And now it's like everybody plays,
Yep.
and it's huge, and it's big in the Midwest and it's big in Florida and it's big in Texas and, it's big in the South now where it's like it didn't used to be.
Yeah.
And so that's, I think, been one of the coolest things is just see the evolution of like our sport in general and how many girls are playing.
Yeah. Over the years you've been there, what have you found the more of the challenging things to deal with as a head coach?
I think I mean, I'm sure people say this, but like the social media has changed things tremendously. I think that outside external pressure has changed things tremendously for young people, just the way they grow up and expectations. I think the transfer portal has changed things for us. I'm not saying anything is good or bad. I just it's changed. And so the athletes are changed, of course, because of it. And now you have NIL, which has changed things again. And so you're just dealing with, I think, a number of different circumstances than
Yeah.
you would otherwise be dealing with or than you used to have to deal with. It wasn't, you could have, you might be having a conversation about homesickness, those were kind of normal conversations. And now you're having a conversation about, which NIL or, how does the transfer portal work? Or, they're just conversations we haven't had to have before.
Yeah.
A lot has happened in the country over the last couple of years, COVID obviously being a big thing. And it just, I think we've had to navigate a number of challenging circumstances in the last 5 or 6 years. And it's nobody's fault. It just is what it is. But as a coach, just learning to adapt and knowing you're not totally prepared to have some of these conversations. Like, it's like, okay, like I didn't know I was going to have to deal with this as a coach, but here I am dealing with it and talking about it. And so, those things can be challenging, but
Yeah. And now, looking back on that, or actually not so much looking back on it, but who would have thought, going into as a volleyball coach, there's so much more to do outside of the sport itself.
yeah, I think that's the biggest misconception people have about coaching is like, oh, so you just show up to the gym and coach for 2 hours and go home. Not even close. I think that is by far the smallest thing we do in a day. Practice is kind of that's when we're the happiest, I would
Right.
say.
Yeah.
We're the most at home. Outside of that, we're doing all kinds of other things. And so I always laugh when people say, well, what else do you do? Do you teach or do you, and I'm like, no, I work like 80 hours a week and I work like 7 days a week and most days of the year. And, because there's always something that needs to be getting done. And recruiting is a never ending to-do list and, those kind of things. And so, yeah, I think people you don't know until you're in it.
Yep.
And even as a head coach, the management of people, I think was one of my biggest learning curves of like, okay, like you're now in charge of a staff and a
Mm-hmm.
support staff and things you just don't necessarily think about when you're gonna, move over in the seat and you're gonna take on different responsibilities. But I think for me, one of the biggest just eye-opening things is like, wow, like I gotta manage staff,
Yeah.
and staff's expectations and those kind of things. And so that's been a learning curve for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I had Matt Ulmer on from Oregon, and he goes, moving that one seat down, you're no longer the cool, fun uncle. You're the guy that's, enforcing things now. And it's like, it's such a big difference. Just one chair.
Yeah, yeah, you're definitely not the fun one anymore. It's like I was 15 years the fun one, and it's like you become a head coach, and all of a sudden it's, and I think also when you're an assistant, you have a lot of opinions. And if I were, I would do it like this, and then as a head coach, it's like, okay, you get to do it now.
Yeah.
And so you have to make decisions and not have opinion. I mean, it's a decision versus an opinion.
Yes.
And I think that is a big change as well because it can be lonely. And I remember talking to John Spraw when I first took this job, and he just said, call me anytime because it can be a lonely place to be. And I didn't have any idea what he meant at the time. I was
Yeah.
kind of like, and then there's been a lot of lonely moments where I'm like, this is what he meant when you've got a tough decision to make or just something you don't necessarily want to deal with, but you have to deal with it. It's like, yeah, it can feel lonely at times. But yeah, it's certainly, as Matt said, you're not that fun anymore.
Yeah. And now, since you've been there at Tennessee, what have been some of the highlights for you that really, when you look back 20 years from now, you're like, wow, that was amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly, going to the Sweet 16 this year, hosting a lot of highlights from this year. But I think back about my first year here in 2018. I was a first-time head coach. I was pregnant. We had just moved here. I had a lot of changes going on in my life. And I had a team that was just awesome. You know, I had like an amazing group that year that was so supportive and so like we were just really close, you know, and I loved that group. And to me, that was like the foundational piece that kind of started building this program back to where we wanted it to be. You know, I know when we beat Baylor at home a couple of years ago, that was you know, a huge moment. We've just, I mean, over the years, like we've had some big wins at home. We've had some amazing wins on the road, but I think it's just each team kind of, you know, you pick out like just, I don't know, the certain kids or just moments from that year. But I think a lot of them just honestly, again, like from this year, it's just a culmination, like I
Yeah.
said, of like so many things.
Excellent. And now, what would you attribute the success of the program? Was there a key year or a key, sort of that made the thing, you made your team swing from, there and now all of a sudden you're here?
Yeah, I think again, I think our 18 season had a lot to do with just building a foundation. And not to say because in 19 and 20 we didn't have the same kind of success. I mean, COVID with the asterisk, you know,
Yeah.
but I think it started to build from there. I think once when COVID happened, we had a couple of players, I think Natalie Hayward being one of them, who was our setter who transferred in here. I think she had a big piece in our culture shift, just in terms of how good this program could be, should be, and what she wanted when she came here to kind of help us, you know, start going in that direction. Obviously, Morgan Fingal went through kind of a transformation as well, going through the 2 seasons of COVID. She was a non-starter the fall of COVID, and then she became a starter in the spring of COVID. And her evolution as a player was again, a big piece of kind of moving the needle forward. So to me, I don't feel like there was like a moment. I think it's been more of a build, and
Hmm.
what I wanted it to be was kind of, you know, to me, if you do things the right way, it takes time. And it's not, you know, you're trying to build a program, not a team. So it doesn't, you know, you don't necessarily can flip it right away. And so I've tried to kind of do it year after year and just continue to get better. So I think about some players that I think were instrumental in just that movement,
Yeah.
and one, their play, but I would say maybe equally, if not more important, was just their mindset about, you know, what they wanted for the program, what legacy they wanted to leave, and what they kind of imparted on the younger players to continue on.
Yeah. And speaking about building a program, coming in as as your first year coach, was, and establishing a culture, was the culture there that you were sort of built off of, or did you have a different mindset or a vision of what, the culture for the program?
Yeah, honestly, that's a great question because my assumption when I got here, to be honest, was that the culture was going to be bad or
Yeah.
poor. You know, like I was not expecting a lot because they hadn't been winning. So my
Hmm.
assumption was the culture wasn't going to be great. And what I found was honestly kind of the opposite. The culture was pretty good. We had a really good group of players who were committed, and they were good students, and they were, you know, making good choices. And so for me, it was a lot about belief, you know, getting them to believe, getting them to expect, you know, things, and just kind of shifting the mindset about like why they came to Tennessee, what the brand means, what being a Lady Vol means, you know, how that there's an expectation of winning around here, you know, and so we got to kind of do our part, and so you got to get them to believe in that, and I think that was what I had to spend more time, I think, doing versus cleaning up maybe some, you know,
Yeah.
junk. I didn't really honestly have to do a lot of that when I got here. I guess less than I would have thought. It was just more about like, okay, so, you know, are we perfect? No, but like, can we start making some different choices? Can we start modeling a few different behaviors and kind of build from there?
Yeah. And the other, sort of unique aspect of coming in as a coach is also the kids that have been recruited, previously. Did you have to sort of, what was their mindset? Because, as a young, young adult coming in, new coach coming, oh my God, they didn't recruit me. Are they going to like me and everything that goes along with that? How was that adjustment?
Yeah, I mean, one of the very first things I did, I sat down with every kid individually and just said, like, you know, why'd you choose here? Tell me about you. What's your position? You know, is that what you came here to play? Are you playing what you thought you were going to play? Kind of what's your role? Is that what you expected? So I tried to learn a little bit before I started making decisions or, judgments on anything. It was like, okay. And so we did our first year, we changed some positions of some players. There was a girl who had played outside hitter the year before, and I just told her, look, like in this league, like you're going to be too small. And so, what do you think about playing libero? And she was all in for it. And she was our libero that year, but it was like, we did a couple of things like that of like, this is where I see you, those kind of things. But tried to really get a sense from them first, because I think that that was a big piece of just coming in. Okay, we need to build some trust. And so
Yeah.
they need to feel a part of this, and they need to at least be heard, whether or not we're on the same page about I don't know, but I at least want to hear them first before I start just, you know, laying the hammer down about all
Yeah.
these things we're going to do. And that seemed to work well, because I do think they felt like, okay, she heard me, she gets me, and now maybe we're having a different conversation. Not that we changed everybody's position,
Right.
obviously, but systematically how we did things, those kind of things. It was just knowing them first and foremost. But I would imagine there was some fear or, some doubt of like, okay, like, are we all going to get kept, or how does
Right.
this work? And is she going to be how she,
Yep.
whatever. And so, but tried to, and it was just me the first couple of, maybe almost the first full month before I had a staff. So I had a long time to kind of just, I got to spend time with the girls, and I think that was really good for us.
Yeah. Excellent. And now, with recruiting, the recruiting process is so crucial, college athletics. What qualities or skills besides the athletic ability do you look for in recruits that make them a good fit for Tennessee?
Yeah, when I get that question from parents, I always say, look, like for me, number one is your passion to play. Because all of you will say you love to play volleyball, but I think you find out really quickly at the next level who really loves to play volleyball, because it's hard. No matter where you go. I mean, it requires a lot of your time, a lot of your physical and mental energy. And I think to be great at it, you gotta really love it. You gotta really be playing for the right reasons. You're not just playing because your parents want you to play, or because you're good, or because you're going to get a scholarship, or, it's like you got to play because you love it. And so I really try to I try to get in there with kids about like, tell me about, your passion for the sport. Because I feel like I can generally tell quite a bit from watching them play. But like what's like when you get here, because to me, like kids who love to play are going to get better because they
Yeah.
want to train, they want to change, they want to watch film, they want to, they want to do all the things that they can do to be great because they love it. Kids that don't love it, they'll come to practice and they'll be compliant, but they're not going to maybe take off or develop or the way that kids really love. So for me, that's probably the number one thing, is just their passion and love for the game to play outside of their skill
Yeah.
set.
All right. And then sort of on the other side of that, when approaching players to come to Tennessee, what are some of the main points that, why would, Sarah come to Tennessee?
Yeah, again, I said it a little bit earlier, but I think just the support of female athletes here is second to none. You're not going to get it. The legacy of being a Lady Vol, the expectation and kind of excellence, and that you wear the logo with pride. It's more than just being a Tennessee Volunteer. If you're a Lady Vol, it means a lot more, and that's really unique to be at a place that celebrates their female athletes the way we do. To have a community and a fan base that celebrate female athletes the way we do, and not only celebrate but support. Yes, that's fans in the stands, but that's also budgets and facilities and things that we're not sharing, where it's like we have our own stuff, we have what we need to be successful. I think that's to me what it looks like in terms of support, more tangible things. And so I think you come here for that. I think you come here because you want to win, and you want to be a part of something that's that's not just, it's just unique. And being a
Yeah.
Lady Ball is really unique. The history and the pride that go along with the tradition of being a Lady Ball, it means something special. And I think if you want to be a part of a place that cares about female sports.
Excellent. All right. And now, where are you finding your kids? Are people, the kids reaching out to you via email, sending in videos, going to tournaments like you were just talking about, you guys were just out in Vegas and Orlando.
Everywhere. I mean, we've got girls from the West Coast and the Midwest and Florida. We've got girls from us Serbia, Italy, and Poland, So worldwide, we're gonna look for the best talent. But yeah, I mean, I would say on a more normal basis, it's people are emailing you, they're sending you film, and then you're going out and recruiting at these qualifiers and watching, starting at mostly 15 and unders, watching players and watching their development. And then, now we can't talk to them till June 15th. So it's kind of a crazy recruiting cycle the way we have things in our rules. But yeah, I would say normally it's just kind of an email exchange where we can't reply back, but they're
Right.
sending us emails to just tell us who they are and sending updated film, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and sort of that actually falls into this next question. If there's a player out there, it's like, oh, you know what, Tennessee's on their radar. Should they reach out via email, or how do they, what's the best way for them to reach out? Go through recruiting, or just a direct, simple email?
Yeah, I mean, emails are great. I also think camp is probably the best way to get seen. It's, you get to be on campus, we get to coach you, we get to interact with you. I think that's, maybe we can see a skill set that we didn't see before. We can see something we didn't see before because in club, it may depend on how good is your setter or how,
Mm-hmm.
like there's lots of things that maybe, you don't necessarily get to showcase your best. And so having you at camp is a huge part of recruiting that I want people to understand, like it's a huge piece. It's not just like we want as many kids as possible. Like if kids are really interested, I think camp is the best way to get seen.
All right. And then, sort of adding on to that club aspect of things, what are you seeing from the kids coming from club, coming to, college? Is there a certain skill set? Is there something that you wish the clubs would focus on teaching more or focusing on?
I would say serving. I think that's the biggest area of growth. I think there's a lot of kids that don't get taught how to serve, especially middles. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like maybe they don't serve for their club team, but I still think it would be good if they learned how to serve. There's a lot of skills in serving that would be beneficial for them to learn just as a volleyball player. But I think that's the skill that's, as a country, we're behind the most. We just got back from Europe and they serve better than we do. And I think a lot of it also is these facilities or where girls play club. They don't have the room that college courts have. And so we
Mm-hmm.
just they don't develop a really good serve. So I feel like we spend a lot of time teaching serving. I mean, not how, not, serve it to zone one, not that kind of thing. Like, okay, this is how you toss it. This is what your approach should look like. Those kind of like breaking it down. So I wish we got better
Yeah.
servers.
All right. And now, you just talk about, going to Italy and Poland. I've had other players on and coaches. They talk about different styles of play when you go to different countries. Did you see that too when you guys go play Italy or Poland? There's a different style of play.
Yeah, I would for sure. I mean, their rules are different, so it has to be, right? Like they can't sub the way that we sub. And so they're typically much more well-rounded than our players are. Their outside hitters are, of course, playing six rotations because they don't even have a DS. That's not a position over there. And so and their liberos don't serve. And
Yeah.
so their middles do. And so they have that skill set. And I would say, yeah, this is generalizing. There's certainly not all this way, but
Yeah.
a lot of them play a little bit of a slower tempo. They're not necessarily always as fast as we play offensively, but they tend to have more range as attackers. And so, yeah, it is different for sure. But I would say those are kind of some of the biggest differences.
Right. Any traditions at Tennessee that that's unique to the volleyball program?
Well, we sing Rocky Top after every win. That's a big one. We shake hands after every practice, coaches and players. Those are probably two of the biggest ones. I just found out the other day, I didn't even know this, but apparently our girls always do a surprise birthday party for everybody on the team. So whether we're in town or out of town, everybody gets a surprise party. So it's like, I guess they know it, but they don't know when it's going to be. So I just learned about that the other day. I said, I didn't know we did that. Yeah, maybe more on the girls' side, but yeah, I would say those are the ones that come to mind.
All right. And speaking of the team, there's some tension that needs to be cracked. Who's that joker? That one that you can always rely on. It's like she's just
Oh
going to
gosh,
bust it.
that's Ashlyn King for sure. That's an easy answer.
You,
She since the day she got here, she's a talker. She can't help herself. She's always got something to say. She's got usually something pretty funny to say. She's learned sometimes. I gotta zip it, but I would say for sure her.
yeah. Yeah. Since, jumping into this podcast and college volleyball, The benches are so fun to watch. They're, that's another, sideshow of the whole game itself. The experience is what, the plays, the dances they all do. It's so much fun to see.
Yeah, the stuff sometimes people always say, "Did you hear me? Did you hear me?" I'm like, "No, I don't hear anything during the game." But every once in a while I'll hear something from the bench and I'm like, what are we doing down there? I don't know. Like what cheer was that? Or like where did that come from? Or, I'll look down and somebody's holding somebody. It's like I don't know what's happening down there. But yeah, it's great. They stay engaged. It's something they kind of come up with on their own. I think it's really fun for them. So yeah, it's great.
Excellent. And now, during the course of the year, are there any dates circled on the calendar? What is it, the first game? Is it the first practice or senior night?
All of those. I'm totally like a day by day person, which I'm sure most coaches say the same thing. But let's say we open up against Penn State and we get to play them at home this year, and I think it's a huge match for us. I think, and as it is for them, I think both of us are coming off good seasons. Plan to have good teams. I think for us, it's like okay, it'll be a measuring stick. Where are we right away? And our so first practice is yes, but our team has been here all summer, so I don't know that first practice has the same appeal that it used to when we didn't get to see your team all summer as like they would come back and you hadn't seen them for 2.5 months, but we were in Europe with our team and they've been here all summer and they're working camp, and so yes, I'm excited for the first practice and for us to actually get to coach them, but I think that for us that August 30th match against Penn State is kind of the first thing.
All right. And now, another thing unique with college sports is, leadership revolves changes. How do you sort of ensure that you've got that next group of leaders ready to come in and sort of take over?
We have a leadership group on our team, so we're constantly bringing girls into that and trying to help them transition into it. So it's not always a group of seniors because then they leave and then you're starting over. And so, we've got some younger players on it. We've got some older players on it. So right now we've got 4 girls that are on our leadership group, and we talk a lot about is just like, hey, we're all on the same team, and this is a bridge. It's like or we're all on the same island is what I always say to them. Like I don't want people feeling like the coaches and the players are on separate islands, because I don't think anything really ever works well that way.
Yeah.
We all want the same thing, so I need our leadership to kind of be speaking the same language. I want them to feel like they can come to us and tell us things that's like, hey, do you think we could do this instead of that, or we were thinking about this instead of that. It doesn't mean I always say yes, but at least I hear them,
Hmm.
and they feel again like they've got some say in what's going on. And so yeah, for us it's kind of a evolution. Like if we change out, somebody graduates in December, like we've put somebody in January, and so by the time that they're seniors, they're typically talking a lot more. When they're freshmen or sophomores, usually sophomores, they're maybe saying a little bit less, but they're listening, and so they're a part of those conversations. But it's a big piece of what we do. I think leadership, any team that's player led it tends to have more success. And I really try to empower our leaders and then our athletes to lead us,
Yeah. Excellent. And sort of when it comes to volleyball is so much more than just a physical sport. There's that whole mental toughness you need to have. How do what do you do, or how do you help ensure that you don't lose the freshmen? Because some of these freshmen coming in, they're the alphas of their club team. They're the starters, and now they're role players or on the bench, and moving away from home, starting college. How do you sort of keep them sort of focused and together?
Yeah, I mean, I think you got to keep your eye on them. I do. I think you got to be paying attention. You got to make sure we've got sisters on our teams. Everybody's paired up with somebody on their team, typically older and younger, or more experienced, less experienced, that kind of thing. So that they've got somebody. Everybody's got somebody that like, okay, I don't want to ask everybody this, but I want to ask, is this a dumb question? Can I ask you?
Right.
That kind of stuff. So they at least they can start to transition and they've got somebody to talk to. But I think you got to keep them, you got to keep your eye on them. You got to talk to them. You got to check in with them, and you got to tell them it's normal. It's normal to feel like overwhelmed. It's normal to, normalizing just the pressure that they feel, or the homesickness that they feel, or or just I was really good and now I don't feel like I'm as good. Like all of that stuff's normal and it's okay. I think those things help. And it's it's a process.
Yeah.
Like every freshman, they come in, and if it doesn't hit them right away, it eventually hits,
Yeah.
it may hit them after season, it may hit them in the spring season, but typically at some point kind of that, oof, it hits them,
Yeah.
and so you got to be there, and you got to protect them a little bit.
Excellent. And now, any words of wisdom for, aspiring coaches looking to, positively impact players out there?
Oh gosh, you're just talking about people trying to get into the
Yeah, or just
profession?
people that are coaching, like coaches right now who are coaching kids. What advice do you have for them to, to help them?
I mean, my biggest thing would be just teach and coach. I mean, that's what we're paid to do. That's what our job is to do. I think it doesn't happen overnight, and kids need to be taught. They need to they're not going to just know how to do something. And so if they don't know how to do it, I think you have to ask yourself, have you really broken it down? Do they know what the expectations are of the skill? Do they know the cues? I think there's a lot of just like, I want you to pass better. I want you to hit it better. And it's like, but they got to know how. And so, I tell our players all the time, like, look, if you don't know how to do something, that's on us. That's on us. But as soon as you know how to do it, that's on you.
Yeah.
Right. And so that relationship of like, if you don't know how to do something, that is for us to teach you. But then once you know it, then it's about, you performing it. And so but you can't teach them everything in a day, in a week, in a season,
Right.
And so it just stay patient and teach and coach.
Yeah. Yeah. Because volleyball is one of those sports where it's a lifelong sport. There is, you can always pick up something from somebody, whether it's, just pick up ball somewhere else, but there's so many keys to the sport that, you're not going to learn everything in a year.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many nuances and there's so many skills, and there are a lot of precision in our sport, and a lot of precision, and so it's there's a reason why, in basketball, like there's only so many guys who can really shoot. It's like it's to be that precise is really hard.
Yeah.
And so I think the same in volleyball, to be a great passer or to be a great setter, it's just you got to have supreme precision. And so that takes time,
Yeah.
and to just understand that.
Yeah. And also it's, basketball, you can be the one person to do everything. Volleyball, for success, you need the whole team to be a part of that.
Yeah, I mean, it is literally, I tell our players sometimes when they want to come in and do individual reps, and it's like, well, when you're passing, you're going to be passing next to somebody, or when you're, the only pretty much skill you can do is serving
Yep.
by yourself. But even that, you're going to be serving at somebody. So, how do you know if your serve is good or not? So I always encourage them, if you're going to come in, do something with somebody. If you're going to hit off a setter. If you're going to pass to a setter, those kind of things, because it's such a team sport.
Yeah, absolutely. And now looking back over the years, has there been any significant lessons you've learned as a coach that has, influenced your coaching philosophy?
I say this every time somebody asks me that. And somebody told me this, my mentor in coaching, but he told me when I first started coaching, they are not you, meaning your athletes are not you. So they are not going to respond the way you respond, or think the way you're going to think, or react, or, all the things that you would do, they aren't going to do. They aren't necessarily going to do. And so you have to learn that. It's like when you sit there and go, well, why don't they? Because that's what you would do, but that they're not you. And so that's been really, really helpful for me throughout the 20 years of just like, okay, like you have to learn how your kids are going to react to things, or what drives them, or because they're not the same things as maybe me. And that's been really, really helpful to kind of ground me at times of like, okay, like it's so true, and I apply it in so many different ways every season, and I just that's been one piece of advice. I think the other piece of advice is just being yourself. I think that's when you become a head coach, it's hard.
Yeah.
You look around at what other people are doing, or what other people are saying, and it's like, should I be doing that, or should I be doing that, and trying to, well, they're having a lot of success, should we do it like that, or and it's like you need to stay true to who you are, what
Yeah.
helps you sleep at night, and how you run your program. And yeah, learning from other people is one thing, but you can't be somebody else. And
Yeah.
so just trying to be as authentic as you can.
All right. And then, what has been the most rewarding thing as a coach for you since you've, started in this career?
I think like right now I've got like three or four wedding invites on my refrigerator, like RSVPs that I need to get back to. I think for me, that's really what it's become about, is just now I'm old enough that I've got girls that are not only married, but they've got two or three kids, and and just seeing how they've evolved in their life, and that they'll still text and go like, I've got a question about this, or I remember when you told me that, or and really feeling like you've made an impact on them far beyond their time as an athlete.
Yeah.
I think as an athlete, they're hearing you, but when you hear from them later on in life and you see how successful they've become, or in whatever they're doing, I think that's probably been their most, not probably, that definitely has been the most rewarding thing. And then knowing, again, they want you at their wedding, which is, quite possibly the biggest day of their life, and
Yeah.
and they want you to be there. And this, a couple of them right now are girls I didn't coach, I coached over 10 years ago, and so just to know that, like, that, you were a big piece of who they
Mm-hmm.
are is really rewarding.
Nice. All right, some fun questions now. So I had a high school setter ask a question because she knows you're a setter. How can she develop better volleyball IQ?
The more she can watch the game at the higher levels, I think that's the biggest piece of advice I would say, also to even our players, that watch pro volleyball, watch international volleyball, watch college volleyball. Just watch what those players are doing, not the success that they're having, right? Like, not, oh wow, that was a great kill, or that was a great serve, but like, how did they do what they're doing, or what decision did they make in that situation? For a setter, right? Like, how did she get her body in position to make that set, or why did she make that set? Those kind of things. I think the more you can watch it, and watch it from that kind of lens, and
Mm-hmm.
not a lens of like, wow, these girls are so good and look at that, watch it from a lens of trying to learn and mimic. It's amazing how much you can pick up from that.
Excellent. And that sounds like that old guy, but the kids don't know how good they have it with access to so much volleyball content. The VNLs, we got the Olympics. It's just college. You can always just find volleyball to watch.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And now, what do you think of the state of the game today? Personally, I don't think it could be in a better state right now.
Well, if you asked me about the rule changes, I would,
Oh,
I would feel differently.
well, that's next. How did you know that was coming?
But no, I mean, the popularity of our sport is unreal. We kind of talked about it earlier, but I can't believe how many girls are playing. And, I wasn't sure how the pro league was going to go in the
Hmm.
US, and to turn on the TV and to see how many fans are in the stands watching those games. It's amazing. I mean, for us, just how many young girls are coming to our matches or our camps, and just how much they're playing at 8 years old or 9 years old. It's amazing to see in this part of the country just how much it's grown, and then obviously in every other part as well. But just, yeah, we couldn't be in a better spot.
Yeah. And then my next question, the new rule changes with the setter and the two new liberos, right? You get two liberos you can run.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the setting one, I'm not a fan of. I mean, I don't know any setter that's going to tell you any differently. I think there's a part of our game that's really beautiful, and there's just a part of our game that I wish I wish it was protected,
Yeah.
and so that change is gonna make our sport look different. So that rule I don't love. The two libero rule, I don't feel like I know enough yet to have a feeling one way or another on it, to experiment with it or to see the advantages of it. And kind of, I feel like I need to TBD on that one.
Yeah, you're not alone. Everybody else is like the libero thing, but yeah, the setter. Like when I've had setter coaches who have been setters, are all on the same page. Like I was a setter in college as well. As I hate it. It's just there's a pure thing about having clean hands, and now you're going to be able to, it's going to be tough to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah, and now if I were to ask your players what is their least favorite drill they do, what do you think that would be?
Hmm. I don't know if they have a least favorite drill. I know they hate when we ask them to jog around the gym. I think that's the thing they hate the most. When we say, okay, warm up, take 2 laps or
Yeah.
3 laps. And it's like, how many laps? I think that's their least favorite thing. I don't know if they've got a drill
Yeah.
that there's no drill to my knowledge that we put up and they go like, oh, I don't like that one. But
Yeah.
I know they tell me I don't want to run laps.
What football player likes to run?
Nobody.
Yeah,
Nobody.
exactly. Yeah.
No, I know.
And now on the road trips, do they let you ever pick the music playlist?
No, I mean they don't ask, but I also don't volunteer. They may ask my husband because Gavin, our assistant, he's pretty musically inclined, so they may
Yeah.
ask him, but me, no, no. I'll just mostly I'm just like turn it down,
Yeah.
turn it down, turn it down.
All right, so here's a fun question. So I do this with everybody. I had Eric Shoji on a while ago, and him and Taylor Averill have this thing. What's the toughest position in volleyball? So what do you think is the toughest position from a mental aspect, and then from a physical aspect?
Gosh, I honestly I would say being a middle. I think that's the hardest position. Or maybe it's just if I had to play middle. I don't
Yeah,
know. I think about that position and I think like who would want to do this? This is like so much work for so little glory.
yeah. You get pushed around, and it's like, yeah,
And it's like if all people care about is did you block the ball? And it's like if you didn't block the ball, everyone's mad you didn't block it, and then all your transition, not getting set, not getting set, but you
yeah,
should be available every time. And yeah, I think that's got to be. I think it's the hardest. I
yeah,
don't know.
yeah.
Maybe I'm alone on that, but
No, you're not, because there's so much happening out of system in today's game, but the middle still got to run their thing, and just be there. And yeah, no, yeah, absolutely. All right. So now, away from coaching, what are some of the things you like to do?
well, I'm a mom, so I spend a lot of time. Any free time I have, I'm with our son. He's 5, and so whatever he wants to do, But or if I can just get a nap, I'll take a nap.
Yeah.
That's like pretty high on the list. I'm usually sleep deprived. I'm a foodie, so we like to find places to eat in Knoxville. That's kind of like last spring we made a goal of like, okay, every week we're gonna try somewhere new we haven't been. So I mean, nothing crazy, but
All
those
right.
and we like to travel. I mean, we love to travel. We don't get a ton of time, but if we can, we love to
Yeah.
travel.
So, all right, two things off that. So, from a foodie standpoint, what is something that you found in the last few weeks that you're like, wow, that was so yummy?
So I don't know about the last couple of weeks, but we have our spots, right? Like
Yeah.
I love Thai food. I love like Asian food of any kind. So any place in Knoxville that's like Asian inspired, we're
Yeah.
like gotta try it there. That's probably my, go to if we
All
can.
right. And then speaking of traveling, so we talked a little bit about earlier. You guys had a trip to Poland and Italy. What was that experience like?
It was amazing, specifically, I would say for the players. I mean, obviously not to say it wasn't for us, but
Right.
I've been to Europe before. And so for us to be able to take a bunch of girls who've never been to Europe overseas and for them to just everything about it, right? Whether it's
Yeah.
cultural or where, the gyms you play in, or the food you eat, or the buses you're on, how you get from place to place, like transportation and everywhere. It's just all different. And then for us to be able to take our Polish player home to Poland where, her parents, her family's never seen her play.
Yeah.
As she left home, the first time she ever got on an airplane was when she flew to
Oh
Knoxville.
my God.
And she left her family in Poland. And so for us to bring her home, I think everybody's highlight of the trip was just getting her to be home and to see her family.
Oh, that's so special. And now, how did you end up, getting a kid from Poland to come to Tennessee?
Well, it was COVID. It was actually
Oh,
we
shoot.
had a girl who opted out and it was a middle and we were down on bodies and it was like, oh my gosh, we got to bring in somebody. And so we had a guy connect us with another person who said, this girl wants to come over to the US. She's kind of a late bloomer. She hasn't been playing volleyball that long, but we were like, okay, she's 6'6" and she can move. And so we're like, okay, we'll bring her on. We did a couple Zooms with her, saw some film, but it was kind of random,
Yeah.
honestly. And but she's new to the sport and she has been, I mean, probably the top of the list on our team in terms of work ethic and just done everything she's supposed to do. So I'm excited for her. This could be a big year for her.
Excellent. All right. Well, Coach, thank you so much for doing this. Before I let you go, though, like with past guests, I look for you to shout out somebody in your circle that you think would have a good story to come on, whether it's a past player, current player, coach, somebody in your world.
See if you can get Chris Lamb from Wichita State.
Okay. All right.
How's that?
That sounds good. Now, what's your connection to Chris?
Chris was my club coach growing up and now is the head coach at Wichita State. So, and he was the assistant coach at Arizona when I was going through my recruiting process. So I've known Chris since I was, uh, since I started, he got me into volleyball.
Yeah.
So when my stepfather took me to that first club
Oh,
practice,
wow.
he was there. And so we're from the same hometown and he he helps me out a lot. He's been my biggest probably mentor in this job and just as an athlete. So yeah.
All right, we'll get him on. Thank you so much, and good luck the rest of the season or when the season
Thank
starts.
you. Thank you so much, and really appreciate you having me on.